Had Westminster actually done their job from day one, with Salmond, with Sturgeon, and all the rest of them, this would never have happened, because they'd have had the wings clipped many times, and they'd have known what they can do, what they can't do, what's devolved, what's not, instead of appeasing them left, right, and centre. And now they get kind of understandably really offended when Westminster actually do their jobs, because they're not used to it. But make no mistake, when Humza goes to the Supreme Court, if he does, Alistair Jack will have a watertight case against him. The UK government will have a watertight case against him, because otherwise they would never have taken the step in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point. That's a good point. The extent to which the SNP, because the SNP have to be trained as like, this is how devolution works. It's quite right that certainly, for example, within the United Kingdom, we do respect the voice of the Scottish Parliament, but we respect it within the overall voice of the British Parliament.
Yeah.
And that's a reflection of we're respecting the voice of the Scottish people within the overall context of the voice of the British people as expressed through our collective parliament. That's the way it works. So sometimes the voice of Holyrood might have to get overridden by the louder voice of all the people of the United Kingdom. There's nothing sinister about that. That's the way that devolution works.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not in a separated Scotland at this time. If we were in a separated Scotland and somehow the British Parliament was laying down the law, then you could complain, because that wouldn't be right. But so long as you're part of a devolved structure where the British Parliament is ultimately the final say, because it represents all the people of the United Kingdom, then you can't complain about that unless you're deliberately trying to misrepresent the nature of devolution, which of course is what they're trying to do. So
yeah.
They have to be trained to understand it properly. And from the very get-go, that's not really been properly done. Even when Labour were in charge. I mean, Labour had an easy run because there was a Labour administration at Holyrood while they had a Labour government at Westminster. So
yeah.
There was really no tension there. There was really no political tension there. And so there was never any need for the Labour Party at the time to explain what devolution was and how it was meant to work. And then when the Tories came in under Cameron and so on, well, they didn't have a clue about anything. I mean, Cameron didn't even know what the Magna Carta was, let alone what devolution in a British Constitution is. I mean, he was literally, when you look back, you have to understand the extent to which that these folk at the time were utterly clueless. And we think, politician, in Westminster, he's on the telly, he must be clever. No, they're not.
No, he wasn't. These people are educated at some of the finest schools in the world. You wouldn't think it, would you? People like David Cameron. Him and George Osborne were an absolute disaster for this country. I mean, so was Blair, don't get me wrong. We had a series of terrible governments.